The restaurant fell silent as she stood up, her chair scraping against the hardwood floor. "This was a mistake," she said, loud enough for nearby tables to hear. Her date, a man in a worn military jacket with tired eyes, remained seated, his expression unreadable as she grabbed her purse and walked out, leaving nothing behind but the echo of her laughter. What happened next would change both their lives forever, but not in the way either of them expected. If you're moved by stories of second chances, misunderstandings, and the unexpected ways life brings people together, hit that like button and subscribe to see more real-life stories that remind us how quickly we judge others, and how wrong we can be. Olivia Chen checked her reflection in the restaurant window before entering. At 32, she had mastered the art of the blind date exit strategy: smile politely, stay for one drink, then make an excuse about an early morning. Tonight would be no different. Her friend Taylor had insisted this guy was perfect for her, but Taylor's idea of perfect usually meant has a pulse and is single. Inside, the hostess led her to a corner table where a man sat alone. Even from behind, Olivia could tell he wasn't her type. His brown hair needed a trim, and his shoulders hunched slightly beneath a faded green military jacket that had seen better days. "Hi, I'm Olivia," she said, extending her hand as she approached. He stood quickly, nearly knocking over his water glass. "James. James Reeves." His handshake was firm but gentle, his palm calloused. Up close, she noticed the dark circles under his eyes and the slight stubble on his jaw. He looked exhausted, like someone who hadn't slept properly in years. "Sorry, I'm a little underdressed," he said, gesturing to his simple outfit. "I came straight from work." Olivia nodded, already mentally calculating how soon she could leave. "No problem. What kind of work do you do?" "I'm a mechanic at Peterson's Auto. Been there about 3 years now." She tried not to let her disappointment show. Her ex-husband had been a corporate lawyer, and while that marriage had ended in disaster, she'd grown accustomed to a certain lifestyle. A mechanic wasn't exactly what she had in mind for her future. The waiter came, and they ordered drinks, a glass of Cabernet for her, just water for him. "Not drinking tonight?" she asked. "I don't drink anymore," he said simply, offering no further explanation. The conversation stumbled along. James wasn't particularly talkative, answering her questions with short sentences that didn't invite further discussion. When he did speak at length, it was about his car restoration project, hardly riveting dinner conversation. Their appetizers arrived, and Olivia checked her watch. 20 minutes had passed. Surely that was long enough to be polite. Then his phone buzzed. James glanced at it, his expression immediately shifting from awkward first-date nervousness to something else entirely, concern, maybe even fear. "I'm sorry," he said, standing abruptly. "I need to take this." He stepped away from the table, speaking in hushed tones. Olivia couldn't hear the conversation, but she could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his free hand clenched and unclenched at his side. When he returned, his face was pale. "I'm really sorry, but I have to go." "It's my daughter." "Your daughter?" Olivia interrupted. Taylor hadn't mentioned a child. "Yes, she's 6. She's with my neighbor, but she's having an asthma attack, and I need to get her inhaler to her. I forgot to leave it when I dropped her off." Olivia felt a flash of irritation. Not only was he a mechanic, but he was a single father too. This date was getting worse by the minute. "You know what?" she said, standing up. "I think this was a mistake anyway." James looked confused. "I'm sorry. Taylor clearly doesn't know me as well as she thinks. I'm not interested in dating someone with—" She gestured vaguely, "all this baggage." The restaurant had grown quieter, nearby diners pretending not to listen. "Baggage?" James repeated, his voice low. "A kid, a blue-collar job, whatever else you've got going on that's making you look like you haven't slept in a decade." She laughed, the sound sharp and dismissive. I've already done the whole fixing someone thing. I'm not doing it again. She grabbed her purse and walked out, not bothering to look back at the man she just humiliated in public. Outside, the cool evening air hit her face, and with it came the first twinge of shame. Had she really just done that? Said those things? That wasn't like her, or at least, it wasn't like the person she wanted to be. Her phone buzzed with a text from Taylor. How's it going with James? Isn't he great? Olivia didn't respond. She'd call Taylor tomorrow and explain that the date just hadn't worked out. No need to mention her behavior. She was about to call an Uber when her father's car pulled up to the curb. Right, she'd forgotten he was picking her up. At 65, retired Colonel Robert Chen still insisted on punctuality, arriving exactly when they'd agreed. That was quick, he said as she slid into the passenger seat. Bad date? The worst, Olivia muttered. Can we just go? Her father nodded, but instead of pulling away from the curb, he was looking past her, his attention caught by something, or someone, outside the restaurant. Olivia turned to see James rushing out, phone pressed to his ear, keys already in hand. Even from a distance, the worry on his face was evident. To her surprise, her father opened his door and stepped out. Dad, what are you doing? He ignored her, walking straight toward James, who was now hurrying toward a battered pickup truck parked down the street. Excuse me, her father called out. Sir. James turned, confusion crossing his face when he saw the older Asian man approaching him. I couldn't help but overhear, your daughter has asthma? An emergency? James nodded, clearly anxious to leave. Yes, sir. I need to get her inhaler to her. I'm Robert Chen, her father said, extending his hand. Former Army colonel. I can get you there faster than you can drive across town in evening traffic. Police escort. Olivia watched in disbelief as her father pulled out his phone and made a quick call, speaking with the authority that had commanded troops for decades. James hesitated only briefly before nodding. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Her father turned toward the car, gesturing for James to follow. When they reached the vehicle, he opened the back door. Olivia, move to the back. This young man needs to give me directions. She started to protest but stopped when she saw her father's expression, the one that had terrified subordinates and her childhood boyfriends alike. Wordlessly, she got out and moved to the back seat. James slid into the passenger seat, barely acknowledging her presence. Within seconds, they were pulling away from the curb, her father driving with purpose. Where are we headed, son? Her father asked. Maple Street Apartments, sir. Building C. Her father nodded, making a sharp turn that pressed Olivia against the door. Your daughter, what's her name? He asked. Lily, James replied, his voice tight with worry. She's with my neighbor, Mrs. Patel. She has asthma, and her attacks can get bad quickly. I understand. My wife had asthma. We'll get there. True to her father's word, a police cruiser appeared behind them, lights flashing but sirens silent. The officer inside gave a quick wave to her father before taking the lead, clearing their path through traffic. Olivia sat in stunned silence, watching the back of James's head, noticing for the first time the military straight posture that matched her father's. The two men exchanged few words, but there was an understanding between them that excluded her entirely. They reached the apartment complex in record time. Before the car had fully stopped, James was out the door, running toward a modest brick building with a small playground out front. Stay here, her father told her, following James at a brisk pace. Naturally, Olivia ignored him, getting out of the car and trailing behind. She watched as James took the stairs two at a time, her father keeping up despite his age. They disappeared into the building, leaving her standing alone in the parking lot. After a moment's hesitation, she followed. The apartment building was clean but worn, with faded carpet in the hallways and flickering fluorescent lights. She could hear voices from an open door at the end of the hall, James's voice, tense but controlled, and an older woman's, heavily accented. Olivia approached slowly, stopping just outside the doorway. Inside was a small living room with mismatched furniture and walls covered in children's artwork. James knelt beside a tiny sofa where a small girl sat, her dark hair in two messy braids, her small chest heaving as she struggled to breathe. An elderly Indian woman hovered nearby, her face creased with worry. "Here, lily pad," James was saying, his voice gentle as he held an inhaler to her lips. "Just like we practiced, okay? Big breath in." The little girl nodded, her eyes, the same warm brown as her father's, wide with fear. She inhaled as he pressed the inhaler, then held her breath for a count of 10 that James whispered to her. "That's my brave girl," he said as she exhaled. "One more time." Olivia's father stood nearby, his military bearing softened as he watched the scene. When the little girl's breathing began to ease, he stepped forward. "You know," he said, kneeling to the child's level, "my wife, Olivia's mother, she had asthma too. Do you know what helped her sometimes?" The little girl shook her head, curious despite her distress. "Humming. The vibration can help open up the airways a little. Want to try?" Lily looked to her father, who nodded encouragingly. "What should I hum?" she asked, her voice small and wheezy. "Anything you like. What's your favorite song?" "Let It Go," she whispered. Olivia's father smiled. "Perfect. Let's hum it together." And there, in that small apartment, the retired colonel began to hum the Disney song, motioning for Lily to join him. After a moment, she did, her thin voice strengthening as the medicine took effect and the humming helped calm her breathing. James watched them, relief evident in every line of his body. When he looked up, he finally noticed Olivia standing in the doorway. Their eyes met, and the full weight of her earlier behavior crashed down on her. Shame burned her cheeks as she quickly looked away. The crisis passed. Lily's breathing returned to normal, and the neighbor, Mrs. Patel, insisted on making tea for everyone. James introduced his daughter to Colonel Chen and his daughter, carefully avoiding any mention of their disastrous date. Lily, recovered from her attack and suddenly shy in front of strangers, pressed against her father's side. "Are you a real colonel?" she asked Olivia's father. "Retired now," he said, "but yes, I was. My daddy was a soldier too," she said proudly. "He has medals in a box, but he doesn't wear them anymore." James looked embarrassed. "Lily, these people helped us out. We shouldn't keep them." "Nonsense," Olivia's father said. "I'd like to hear about those medals." And so they stayed, drinking Mrs. Patel's strong chai tea while Lily gradually overcame her shyness. She showed Olivia her collection of rocks and feathers, carefully arranged on a small bookshelf, while the men talked quietly in the kitchen. Olivia couldn't hear their conversation, but she could see her father's expression, the respect in his eyes as he listened to whatever James was saying. Occasionally, her father would nod or place a hand on the younger man's shoulder, the gesture both paternal and that of one soldier to another. When it was time to leave, her father surprised her by exchanging phone numbers with James. "If you ever need anything," he told him, "you call. Day or night." In the car, Olivia expected a lecture. Her father had surely figured out what had happened at the restaurant. Instead, he drove in silence for several minutes before speaking. That young man was a staff sergeant. 2 tours in Afghanistan. Bronze Star with Valor. Olivia stared out the window. He didn't mention that at dinner. Men like him rarely do. Her father's hands tightened on the steering wheel. His wife died when the little girl was 2. Cancer. He's been raising her alone while working full-time and taking night classes in engineering. Each word was like a knife, cutting through the carefully constructed justifications she'd been building. "How do you know all this?" "We talked while you were playing with his daughter." He glanced at her. The daughter you referred to as baggage, I believe. Olivia winced. You heard that? I didn't need to. I saw your face when you walked out, and I saw his when he came running out after you. I know my daughter, and I know that look. They drove in silence again, the weight of her father's disappointment heavier than any lecture could have been. I messed up, she finally admitted. Yes, you did. I don't know why I said those things. That's not who I am. Her father sighed. Isn't it? You've been chasing some idea of the perfect life since your divorce. The right job, the right house, the right man, as if checking boxes could guarantee happiness. That's not fair, she protested, but the words rang hollow even to her own ears. Your mother and I had nothing when we started. I was a young lieutenant, she was working 3 jobs to put herself through nursing school. We lived in base housing that was barely bigger than that young man's apartment. I know, Dad. Do you? Because tonight I saw you dismiss a good man because he didn't fit your checklist. A man who, by the way, reminds me very much of myself at that age. Olivia had no response to that. They drove the rest of the way home in silence, but sleep eluded her that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw James's face as she'd walked out, or worse, Lily's innocent smile as she showed off her treasured collection. The next morning, she called Taylor. I need James's number, she said without preamble. Good morning to you too, Taylor replied. I take it the date went well? Olivia sighed. It was a disaster, and it was entirely my fault. I need to apologize. There was a pause on the other end. Wow. That's not what I expected. What happened? I was awful, Taylor. Truly awful. I said things I'm ashamed of, and I need to make it right. I don't have his number, Taylor admitted. My husband knows him from the VA support group. I can ask him to pass along a message. No, that's okay. I'll figure something out. After hanging up, Olivia sat at her kitchen table, staring into her coffee cup. What was she doing? What did she hope to accomplish by apologizing? It wasn't like James would want to see her again after how she'd behaved. Still, she couldn't shake the image of his daughter's small face, or the way her father had looked at him with respect that James had earned but that Olivia had failed to give him. Before she could talk herself out of it, she grabbed her keys and headed for Peterson's auto shop. The garage was busy when she arrived, cars in various states of repair filling the bays. A middle-aged man in overalls approached her as she entered. Can I help you, miss? I'm looking for James Reeves. Does he work today? The man's expression shifted slightly. He does, but he's with a customer right now. Can I help you with something? No, I just need to speak with him. It's personal. The man, his name tag read Peterson, gave her an appraising look. You're not another bill collector, are you? Because I already told the last one. No, nothing like that, Olivia interrupted, surprised. We met yesterday. I just need to talk to him. Peterson's expression softened slightly. He's in the office with Mrs. Gunderson. Should be done in a few minutes if you want to wait. She nodded, taking a seat on a plastic chair near the entrance. The garage was cleaner than she'd expected, the tools organized neatly on pegboards, the floor swept despite the inevitable oil stains. Through a window, she could see James in a small office, talking to an elderly woman who was nodding as he explained something, pointing to a form on the desk between them. He looked different here, more confident, more at ease. His POS.